Good morning and welcome back to my journey, my voice. And if you'd like to subscribe and get my devotions, it's at PJ, his daughter, on YouTube. Today I am continuing in the book of Romans and have been for a while. And in reading the Bible, I have a number of translations, and sometimes I like to switch up and do a little comparison. And so I've been reading in the Jerusalem Bible along with my King James Version. And so in Romans 14:7, it says, "The life and death of each of us has its influence on others." Isn't that very interesting? It says a lot. That's something I think is well worth sharing with everyone because it's so true. You know that saying about a man is an island unto himself, and that is not true at all, because none of us are truly an island unto ourselves. In fact, if we moved to a deserted island and we lived on that island, our lives would affect the very environment of that island. And so it is that our life and our death, the things that we do, the things that we say, will always affect someone else. We have talked about that a number of times, that words have power. And so our lives, when we speak, is going to affect another person. You know, when someone says something positive to me, it always releases something in me. It makes me feel good about myself. And by the same token, if someone says something negative about me or to me, it causes me to withdraw somewhat and to feel less than about myself, or if nothing else, to definitely reflect on myself through the eyes of the person who's speaking. So no matter what we do or what we say or what opinions we might have and how we express them, we definitely are going to affect someone else's life. And Paul is speaking this to us in Romans, that the life and death of each of us has its influence on others. Now, as I was reading that, I had a very humorous thought about that, and so I don't mean to be sacrilegious, so if some of you get put off by what I'm about to say, you might want to switch this off. But anyway, life is humorous. It really is. And so this morning I woke up, and for some reason, and I was thinking about my early days as a little child and in the community that I was raised in Louisiana. And most of our lives circled around the social hall and the Catholic church that was in the community. It was the only church out in that community. And I know I've told some stories about that. But, you know, everyone in the community was pretty much on the same economic level. In other words, we were poor. But I would like to speak this really quick to mothers that are single moms or even single dads who are raising their children, and they may not have a lot of money and a lot of the things that other kids have in their lives. But I want to share with you and challenge you that how you react to life, there's that influence that we have on others. How you react to life is going to influence and have an effect on your children. So most children are resilient. They really are. And so if you can speak positive and reflect on the goodness of God, look around you and find something in life to be positive about and to speak about and be thankful for, no matter how small or how little it might be. If you're thankful, your children's going to pick up and be influenced by that positive, thankful spirit. And even if it's having to look about to find flowers or trees or birds or something to be thankful for, thankful that you're born in this wonderful country of ours where we have the freedoms that we have. But as you are thankful for life, your children will be too, and they will not be so taken by the influence of others who may have a lot more than they do, but that do not have the same spirit that you have. So share a positive spirit. So when I was little, in our community, clothes were passed around quite frequently. So when people grew out of their clothes, the next generation received those clothes. And a lot of times, and this was when I was very young, and more so probably for my mother's era, but people spoke about the clothes because the clothes had been passed around so much. They would talk about the clothes as though they were people and that their character. So, for instance, a skirt that was passed around was spoken of like my aunt would say, "Oh, that skirt. I remember that skirt. That skirt was one that Margaret Ann wore at the social hall dance." And so that's whenever brother asked her out on a date. And so when one of the twins had the same skirt, such and such happened to her. So the skirt evidently was associated with happy memories. Likewise, when someone would wear something to a funeral, then especially my grandmother, she would never, if that item was passed along, it had sad thoughts with it, and they would never use that for a quilt. Whenever the clothing would become so worn, then they would turn them into quilts. So they would never use a well-remembered clothing that someone wore to a funeral and use it for a quilt, because that just wouldn't be good. But if the clothing had happy thoughts, then they would say something like, I hope that dress, that you have great times in it because it's been a lot of places. Or that dress came from the big city. Annie brought that from her aunt, and it came all the way from the city. So I'm sure that you're going to enjoy wearing that skirt. One such instance, though, was from a female that was out there, and she did not like to share her clothes, and often she would have clothes, and she had maybe a little more money, and so she would hoard her clothes. She wouldn't give them away, according to the other people in the village. And so she had a favorite white blouse, and she was a rather healthy woman, like I am. And so she enjoyed her food, and often she would spill that food. So one time she evidently got something on her blouse, and she soaked it in bleach. And so at church, the funniest things always happened in church. And so this lady always had a habit, when she sat in church, of doing this great big yawn, and she'd go, and then throw her arms back, and just at a certain point every Sunday, this was her routine. And so she was in church this Sunday, and she had her favorite white blouse on that had been bleached because of a stain, and too much bleach was used in the blouse. And so when she did her big yawn, the blouse split down the front. And of course it was to her great humiliation, but to everyone else, the young people especially, it was very humorous. And then my aunt said, You see, that's what happens whenever you hoard. That blouse was entirely too small for her, and she should have passed it along. And so most people did pass along their clothes. Now, sometimes in the guy's case, they just used patches, and they patched their clothes. And Grandma always said, when you started patching on top of the patches, it was time for that to become a patchwork quilt. And the great thing about the quilts, which I have one my mom made for me, is that it had clothing from so many walks of life that people had worn and memories. And so the ladies could look at a patch and tell you where that patch had been, what dress and what kind of memories were associated with that patch. Isn't that a great story? And it is one out of a very lean, economically place that we lived in, and yet it is reflective of the humor and life that the people lived at that time, that I lived at that time. So I want to leave you with the thought and the that I hope that you'll think about this week, that truly your life will influence someone else. Even if you think it will not, that you think your opinions don't count, they really do. And all of your life and your death will leave a mark, one way or the other. I hope that it will leave a positive mark, a mark that will make a difference in someone else's life. That's what I pray for my life. You know, I have had a lot of negative things that happened in my childhood that are not good to think on, that were painful. But I've also had a lot of joy. And I want to share some of that joy, as well as some of the difficult things I've learned in life, to encourage your life. And I hope this morning, as you listen to this, you will think on some positive, funny memories from your life and be able to share those. So have a blessed day, and don't forget, your words and your life will influence someone else. God bless you.